What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. So today in question number 35 you can go ahead and check out the video.
I have left the video link in the description below. So what's going to happen in this question is, as same as the previous question, we are going to enter some data onto the tables which we created in question number 31 and 32. So in this question we are going to start off with the first question. We have 7 parts in main question number 35. So in the first question they are asking us to enter data onto the brand table. So we have four brands we have to enter onto the brand table. So starting off with DSI, I open my ADSQL browser. I'm going to insert into, I just have to write a simple query, insert into, then I have to give my database name, earlier shoe center dot. Now we have to give up our table name, brand, then we have to open a pair of brackets, then write values, then we have to open another pair of brackets, then end it off with a semicolon. Okay, and we have to mention the column names we are going to enter the data. So we have 2 columns. So actually we don't need the brand ID because that's an auto increment column. You won't need that, and the value should be entered within double quotes. So our column is the brand name and our first data is DSI. So you can press either this key or you can just press F9. I'm just going to press F9. Okay, now our data has been entered. I'll just refresh the page like this. Okay, we have our first data entered like this. So you only need to practice the queries. So insert into the database earlier shoe center dot. You can get the suggestions to Ctrl+S. The brand table, open a pair of brackets, then values, open another pair of brackets, then the semicolon. The column name, that's brand name, and the value. The value is next value we have BATA. Okay, BATA. F9, or you can press this key right here. Okay, refreshing. I have the BATA row entered onto the column. So again, next one, insert into earlier underscore. You can just press Ctrl+S dot. The brand table, we are using brand table, and pair of brackets, values, another pair of brackets, and a semicolon. Then the column name, that's brand name. You have to enter the data. So our next data is Nike. Just close this. Okay, now you can press F9. Okay, refreshing the page, I have Nike. Okay, and our next and final brand name is Puma. Just going to delete this. Insert into our database the shoe center dot brand table, and open a pair of brackets, values, another pair of brackets, then semicolon. I'm going to give the column name, brand name, and I have to give Puma. Okay, press F9. Okay, let's refresh this again. Okay, now we have Puma as the 4th brand table. So we have done entering the data onto the
brand table, I'll just quickly mark it. Okay, so let's just use a different color, because in every video I just use blue color. So for this video I'll just use I'll use this. Okay, this looks good. So I'll just paste this and use my new color. Okay, on second thought I'll just use another color. I guess red would do. Okay. So moving on to the next one, that is question number 2. We have to enter all these data. So we don't have any foreign keys. That means we can straight away add these, and we have already entered data onto the brand table, so we can ignore this one. Okay. So what I have to do is I have to open a query tab, just delete this. Then I have to insert into my database. Relation center dot here we are entering data onto the product table, so you have to select the product table, and next comes the product name. Okay, now we have to place 2 brackets, then values, then another pair of brackets, then the columns. So in the columns we don't have to give the product ID because it's an auto increment column. We have to give 3 columns. Okay, 3 columns. Then we have, okay, now we have the product name, description and brand ID. Product underscore name, then the description, then again the brand underscore ID. Okay, now we have to give the values. So our values will be according to the question. First value will be product name Sparks pen, and the description will be this description. Then the brand ID will be 2, so you don't have to copy that, just write it. So I'll just run this and see whether it will work. Okay, there doesn't seem to be any problem. I'll just check the product table. Okay, here we have the product table. Okay, there's no problem. So product ID 1, product name Sparks Men, then we have the description, and we also have the brand ID. So for the next product I'm going to do the same thing. Insert into my database. We have to tell the place where the table is situated. So the table is inside the database. Our product table is inside the database. The space with a small space, and values, then another small, then another pair of brackets. Then I have 3 columns. Then I have 3 values which you have to put inside that. Then our first column is the product name, description and brand ID. That's how it goes. So product name, description and finally the brand underscore ID. Okay, so now we have to give the values. So first value, the description, and finally the brand ID, which is also 2. Okay, let's press F9. Okay, let's refresh this. Okay, now we have our second row. Okay, again I am going to delete all of this, then give an insert into, then earlier shoe center dot our product table, leave a small space, pair of brackets, values, another pair of brackets, then a semicolon. Then you have 3 columns which you should enter data, double quotes, double quotes, double quotes. I mean 2 double quotes, 2 single quotes. That means eventually it's a double quote like this. You have to enter data between these 2 single quotes, which is 2 double quote, which is a single double quote. Okay, so our first column name is product underscore name. Then we have the description, and then finally final column is the brand underscore ID. So now we have to fill the values. Nike Waffle 1, that's our first product name. Paste it. Description, copy, paste it here. Then I'll need the brand ID, that's 3. Okay, press F9. Okay, let's check the data. Refresh, you get the third row. Okay, let's insert another data. Insert into our database. Sorry, the product table. We are entering data onto the product table. Use small space, a pair of brackets, values, another pair of brackets, then the semicolon. Now mention the column names, then the data which should go inside those columns. So I'm going to name the columns. Our column names are product name. Sorry, this should be description, and then finally the brand underscore ID. Okay, so our first value is next one is wave jeans slipper. Okay, so our next one is gender. Okay, and our brand ID is 1. Okay, press F9. Okay, so just hit a quick refresh. Okay, now we have our 4th data. Okay, erase all of it, and so you can just replace the ones that are existing in the same query. That means you can just write one query and just replace the data, but I'm just doing this for my practice and so that you will understand it further. So my database again, then product table, leave a pair of brackets, then values, another pair of brackets, then a semicolon, and try to give my column names. My first column name is product underscore name. Next one, description, then the brand underscore ID. So my data is going to be like this. So copy this, paste it here, copy this one as well, copy, paste it here, then our brand ID will be 4. Okay, so press F9 once you are done. Okay, refreshing again, I have my final column, that is Roma Italy speakers, whatever that is. Okay, so I have entered data onto the next row. Okay, next I have I have to enter data onto the GRN table. So first, when you are going to enter data onto the GRN table, first check whether there are any rows where which contains foreign keys of reference tables which you haven't entered data. So in this case you have a foreign key, that is the user ID, but in the previous question we entered data onto the user table, so nothing to worry about in this case. So what I had to do, I had to open my browser again, close all of this, then I had to write another insert query because we are inserting data into sorry about that. RJ shoe center dot. We are entering data onto the GRN table. We are entering into the GRN table. So in the GRN table we have the the GRN ID column. So open a pair of brackets, values, open another pair of brackets, then a semicolon. Okay. I'll need here I'll need 1, 2. We don't need this GRN ID column again because it's a auto increment column. I'll only need these two columns, that is the date and user ID. So I'll need only 2, and I'll need 2 pairs of single quotes to enter data, and I have the date column, and then I have the user ID, user underscore ID. Okay, so our data is going to be like this. First data will be, just copy this, and our user ID will be 4. Okay, let's see whether there's not going to be any problem. Okay, there's a small problem. There's no field like date. So in the GRN table, it's true there's no field called date. So we have to rename this as we have to correct this as GRN underscore date. Okay, let's see whether this works now. Okay, there doesn't seem to be any problem. Okay, our data has been entered. So the problem was that here I have mentioned date only, so it's actually GRN underscore date. According to the table, we have GRN underscore date. So we have to correct this in the query. Okay, now we have entered our first data. Moving on to the next one. So insert into our database. Insert into where? Our database. Inside our database, we have the GRN table. So we have to enter data onto that table. Open a pair of brackets. Values should be in capital, but SQL is a query language where case is not significant. That means it's not a case sensitive language. So ADSQL is a code. That means ADSQL is the framework that you can use to manipulate the data which is in the database server. So what you can do is, when you in the ADSQL server itself, in the ADSQL software itself, when you write something in simple and when you try to complete the query, it automatically adjusts the required keywords. Now values is a keyword, so it gives the keyword in capital letters. Okay, so however we have to enter data. First we have the GRN underscore date. We have to mention GRN underscore date because that's the column name, and we have the user ID. Okay, user underscore ID. So our second one is this. Just copy this, paste it here, and user ID is still 4. That means the same user has purchased in 2 different situations. So once you press F9, let's refresh this again, and you have the second data. Okay, moving on to the next one. Next one we have the date like this. So let's erase the whole thing. So insert into my database dot, entering data onto the GRN table. Select the GRN table, then open a pair of brackets, values, open another pair of brackets, then a semicolon. Okay, 2 brave basins and 2 pairs of single quotes. I have GRN date. Next I have the user ID. So my date is going to be this date right here. Copy this and paste it here, and my user ID will be 5. Okay, press F9 once you are done. Just refresh the page. Okay, now we have the next data. Okay, next what you have to do is just close the whole thing, write another insert for the next and final data. Throw insert into, first you have to mention the database, RL issues, enter dot, we are entering data into the GRN table, leave a small space, open a pair of brackets, values, another pair of brackets, then a semicolon. Then two pairs of gray vessels, then this should be grn underscore date, and this should be the user underscore id. So our values are going to be, okay, we have another table row actually. Okay, so this is going to be, let's copy this and paste it here. Then user ID will be 5. Okay. Just run this using F9. Okay, now we have our final row. Okay, that's how you enter data onto the GRN table like this. Okay, that's the end of the third question. We have 4 more questions. So now we have to enter data onto the GRN item table. So in the GRN item table, here's how you are going to do that. So write an insert into, first you have to mention the database. So inside the database are all our tables. So we have to enter data onto the GRN item table, GRN underscore item table, leave a small space, then values, another pair of brackets, then a semicolon. And we have to mention all the gray vessels we have to enter. So GRN ID you don't have to worry about it. You have to only worry about these columns. So there are 5 columns that you need to worry about. So okay, here there's a small problem. Now here when you are considering these columns, when you take the final column, that is the stock ID, we still haven't entered data onto the stock table. So it's better if you are skipping this question and starting off from this question, because in that way, once we fill data onto the stock table, we can get those primary keys. We can get those foreign keys onto the GRN table. Otherwise, we can't enter data onto the GRN table. So I am going to start off with question number 5, skipping this question number 4 for the moment. Okay. So we are going to enter data onto the stock table first. Okay, in the stock table, what I have to do is I have to write an insert into my database dot the stock table, give a small space, then values, another pair of brackets, then like this. So now I have 2 columns. The stock ID is not necessary. 2 columns, and I have to leave 2 spaces for that. And the quantity and the selling price. The column names are quantity and selling price. Okay. So our quantities and selling prices are 20 and 400. The quantity is 20 and selling price is 400. Let's see how this works. Okay, let's check that. The stock table. Okay, now data has been entered onto the stock table like this. So in the same way, we have to enter data like that. So insert, sorry about that, insert into database dot, we are going to enter data onto the stock table, give a small space and open a pair of brackets, values, open another pair of brackets, then end it with a semicolon. We have 2 columns that we should enter data. First column name is quantity, then next one is its selling price. Selling underscore price. So our next one is 30 and 350. 30 and 350. Press F9. Okay. Just hit a quick refresh. You get the second row. Okay. Close all this. Then insert into the database name dot entering data onto the stock table. Leave a small space. Open a pair of brackets. Values. Open another pair of brackets. Then end it with a semicolon. Okay, so the same format goes for the tables. Quantity, selling price. So quantities and selling prices are 40 and 300. 40 and 300. Press F9. Okay. So just hit a quick refresh. Okay. Close all of this, then again starting off from 0, so insert into a database dot stock table, leave a small space, open a pair of brackets, then values, open another pair of brackets, and repeat the semicolon. Okay. QTY, that is quantity. Then selling price. So our next selling price is 31. It's 31. Sorry, the quantity is 31 and selling price is 300. Press F9 once you are done. Just refresh this. Okay, our next row has been entered. Close all of this. Insert into my database. Array shoe center dot the stock table, leave a small space, open a pair of brackets, values, another pair of brackets, then end it with a semicolon. So here quantity, and here selling price. So 31, last we have 35 and 1650. 35 and 1650. Okay, press F9 once you are done. Okay, we have entered the fifth row of the GRN table. So just close all of this. Okay, now we have successfully entered data onto the GRN table. Okay, next we'll just continue on adding data onto these onto the invoice table also. So in the invoice table we must know the user ID which we completed in the previous question, that is question number 34. So we have to mention the date and user ID. So here's how you have tried the query. So insert into, we have to mention our database, earlier shoe center dot we are entering data onto the invoice table, leave a small space, open a pair of brackets, values, then open another pair of brackets, then a semicolon. Okay, so we have about 2 columns, that is the date and user ID. We have to mention the date and user underscore ID. So our date is according to the table. Just copy this, paste it here. It should be 3. Press F9 once you are done. Okay, we have to check the invoice table here. Okay, we have the invoice table here. Our data has been entered. Okay, close this all again and write from the beginning. Insert into holiday issue center dot entering data onto the invoice table, leave a small space, open a pair of brackets, values, and like this. Okay. Just copy this date and place it here. User ID is 3, that means the same user has gone to the same invoice. So this should be our first column name, should be date, then next one should be user ID. This should be user underscore ID, this should be date. Okay, let's run this. Okay, so once you press F9 and once you refresh the page, you will get your second data onto the table. So again, I am going to write another query for the next row. Insert into early issue center dot, we are entering data onto the invoice table, leave a small space, open a pair of brackets, values, open another pair of brackets, in a semicolon. Be the date and user ID. We have date and user underscore ID. The date is this date right here. Let's copy that. Date here. Now user ID is 7. Press F9. Do a quick refresh, you have all the data entered onto the invoice table. So that's the end of the 6th question. So in order to do the 7th question, you will have to first enter data onto the invoice table, which we are going to do it right now. So we skipped question number 4, that's why we have to enter data onto the invoice table first. Invoice table, so we have to first enter data onto the invoice table. Okay, now we'll just do question number 7. We'll just quickly do question number 7, then we can move on. So all these columns have been entered. We don't need to enter data onto this column, or we need only these 3: the invoice ID, stock ID, and the quantity. So insert into our database dot, here we have the invoice item table. This is the invoice item table. So our columns are legal, small space, then we have 3 columns. We have 3 columns to enter data. We have to keep space for that, and invoice ID, stock ID, and quantity. Invoice ID and stock ID, and finally we have quantity. Okay. So 1, 1, and 10. 1, 1, and 10. Okay, let's move on to the invoice item table. See whether, okay, our data has been entered successfully. Okay, let's close all this, then write insert into early issue center dot, entering data onto the invoice table, invoice item table, leave a small space, values. Okay, Row columns are invoice ID, stock ID, and quantity. Invoice ID, stock ID, and finally quantity. Okay, so we have 1, 1 and 2. 1, 1 and finally we have 2. Okay. Just, okay, in the table we have invoice ID and the stock ID. Okay, these two should be changed. This should be invoice and okay, my mistake. This should be invoice underscore item table. This is not the invoice table. Okay, let's just refresh it now. Okay. Once you refresh it, there's no problem there. Okay. Again, next one. Insert into our database dot. We have the invoice item table. Give small space. Open pair brackets. Values. Okay. 3 spaces. We have the invoice ID. Then we have the stock ID. Stock, not double K, just a single K. And you have the quantity. So for our next one, it's 2, 2 and 4. 2, 2 and finally 4. Okay, that's how you enter data onto that row. So next one, insert into my database dot entering enter data to the invoice table. Leave a small space. Open pair of brackets. Values. Another pair of brackets in a semicolon. Okay. We have the invoice ID. We have the stock ID, and we have the quantity. Okay, so 3, 3 and 6. 3, 3 and 6. So once I press F9, data will be entered. Okay, our data has been entered. So close all of this. So insert into database dot. This is the invoice item table. Leave a small space. Values. Another pair of brackets. Okay. So our first column is invoice underscore ID, then the stock ID, then we have quantity. Okay, final row is 4, 3, 2. 4, 3 and 2. Okay, so here we have a small problem. Okay, this should be 3 because in the invoice ID table you don't have 4, you have only 3, so it should be 3. So let's run that. Okay, so once you refresh this, you will get the final row. So just okay. Now we have entered all those data. Okay, moving on to the fourth question which we couldn't do. So I'll just enter insert to database dot. Here we are going to enter onto the invoice table. Sorry, the GRN item table. Item table, leave a small space, there are brackets, then values, then end it with a semicolon. So we have 5 columns. Okay, so 5 columns would be 2, then 32, 350, 400 and 1. So 2, 32, 350, 400 and 1. 350, then we have 400, then 1. Then the column names are product ID, quantity, product ID, then quantity, then you have unit price, selling price and stock ID. Unit price, selling price and also the stock ID. Stock underscore ID. So let's see whether the tables are correct. So GRN item table. Yeah, tables are correct. Now we have to press F9. Okay, so GRN item ID we have to give that. Yeah, we haven't. Okay. GRN ID we have to give it. This should be GRN. Okay, this should be quantity. This should be quantity. Okay, so I have to give an ID to this one. I'll just give it as auto increment. Then the quantity should be like this. I'll just save the table. Okay, now I save the table. Let's see if there are any issues. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, so GRN ID. Okay, I'll just I have to remove this one, I guess. Just rename this one as GRN ID. GRN underscore ID. So likewise, we have to enter data onto the GRN table as well. So we discussed how to enter those columns. So we have to enter the GRN ID, the product ID, the quantity, unit price, selling price, and also the stock ID. So that's the end of the 4th question which we skipped. So let's meet in the next video, that is question number 36. So I'll meet you guys in the next video. In that question, we are going to discuss some more questions which is based on the database management video series. So I'll meet you guys in the next video. So bye guys.